welcome to Check Your Leader TV. Today I was going to bring you game number 2, scenario 2 from the Capturing Caesars Camp pint-sized campaign, which is the Seaforths at 12 Fortes. This is one of the 2 flanking attacks part of this pint-sized campaign. Scenario 1, scenario 2 are both one-off games. Essentially, by succeeding in these scenarios, you gain certain support as you progress through the games 3 through to 5. From the perspective of the British player, I really didn't see there was much incentive for me to push too hard on this battle. If I succeed in this battle, I would then be able to draw French armour for the 4th scenario. And having had a look at the terrain that that we'd be operating in, that I didn't see the French armour as being particularly attractive option to want to be able to draw upon anyway. I was more concerned with my force morale taking a beating, and if I was to sustain 5 or more casualties in trying to secure this objective in this particular scenario, it was distinctly possible that my force morale could drop another 2 points, and I'd be then at -5. Instead, what I decided to do was to make a tentative attempt at securing the objective, and if that couldn't be achieved, I would pull out very quickly so as to minimize casualties, so that I could get the opposite effect, which is an increase in my force morale. Bearing in mind, I was going into this battle at already -3 on force morale. Long story short, the effort was made. I tried to attack predominantly using French armour. Was able to avoid being destroyed by an off-table 88, but the Char B that I took into the game ended up succumbing to an ambush by a German flamethrower. So at that point, as soon as the French armour was dealt with, I wasn't going to try and push forward with just infantry, because the terrain is particularly open and quite dangerous for infantry assaulting into what is essentially complex terrain, hedges, and a built-up area. So that's not going to happen today, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to present you another little game before continuing with the pint-sized campaign. But as for the Capturing Caesars Camp pint-sized campaign, that's not going to happen today with this particular game, because it was very short and fairly uneventful, and really there's not much worth sharing other than to say that the British force morale has gone from being at -3 to now -1. The lads were pretty happy that their lives weren't thrown away senselessly trying to capture this objective. So what I am going to do today is I'm going to play scenario 3 from the Capturing Caesars Camp pint-sized campaign, but with a twist. I'm going to play it solo because we're in lockdown again. I'm going to play it in 20mm, and I'll explain why shortly, and I'm going to set it in 1944. Why am I playing it in 20mm? I want to play it in 20mm because I'm a big fan of 20mm miniatures for chain of command. I think if you look at it, the ground scale for 15mm is perfect for chain of command, but most people play in 28mm, and I suspect that's because most people have their armies in 28mm because either they've come across from bolt action or they just like 28mm. 15mm tends to be used for larger scale battles, like company size or battalion size actions. But 20mm, I think, is a really, really good scale because it hits that sweet spot between, it's close to the ground scale accurately, it matches fairly well, and it has the eye candy of 28, but it's not as small and filly as 15. So anyway, I'm gonna do in 20 mil, and I'm gonna play this scenario. And the reason I'm doing that is because when we come out of lockdown, I'm going to be playing this scenario again as part of the Capturing Caesar's Pint Size campaign, and I'll be playing it in 28 mil. And so you'll be able to see this game and then compare it with a game in 28 mil on the exact same table, using the exact same terrain, using the exact same scenario. Unfortunately, the force composition will be slightly different because it's a 1944 British platoon and a 1944 German platoon. The German platoon in 1944 has more anti-armor assets, but is down a senior leader. Other than that, it's fairly much the same. 10 men across 3 sections with 1 MG 34/42 and 6 riflemen. The British section, again, is almost identical. The only difference being is it has a Pia instead of a boys anti-tank rifle. The sections, instead of being 11 men strong, are 10 men strong. And instead of having the section commanders and the platoon sergeant with submachine guns, with rifles in 1940, by 1944, the section commanders and the platoon sergeant are armed with Sten guns or Thompsons. So other than that, there's not much different. Now I'm going to play it solo. Now the way I play solo, first thing you do is you work out force morale. I just rolled 2 chain of command dice, grey for Germans, green for the Brits. I've rolled a 5 for Jerry. The platoon, I'm going to give them a +1. So they're now at force morale. They've rolled effectively a 6, which gives them maximum force morale. The Brits have a -1. I've rolled a 2. They're down to 1, which means they're at the minimum force morale, which is, I guess, appropriate given it's 19, the Brits are probably greener troops. Anyway, so that's going to be the status for the force morale. Now, force support. Now, the Germans have 6 points worth of force support. And I'm going to use the same force support options that they have for this scenario here. And at the same time, I'm going to do that with the Brits as well. Now, how do I determine force support? Well, I give the attacker the option to choose whatever he wants. And so the Brits have 12 points of support. They're going to take the following. They're going to take, for 4 points, they're going to take an additional infantry section. So an infantry section here, that's 4 points. They're going to take a Bren carrier for 3, so that's 7. They're going to take 2 2-inch mortars, so that's another 4, so that's 11, which leaves them 1 point, which I will give them the adjutant. So that's the British force support. Now, how do I determine the Germans' force support? Well, I randomise it. So I'm going to basically dice to see what they get. Now, there's support list 1 through to 6, which is convenient because there's a 6-sided dice. But the off-table bunker buster, they can't purchase that because it's only available in scenarios 2 and 4. So if I roll a 6, I'll just re-roll that. So let's just see what they roll. 1, okay. So for their first of their 6 points of support, they have to pick something from here. Now, I'm going to discount any offensive type of support because they're in the defensive. So from the pioneer, mine clearing, wire cutting, and demolition teams in the cars, that's a no-no. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll re-roll any 6s. 5, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's an entrenchment. So that's their first point. They have 5 points left. 4, okay, so they can pick from list 4, and from here, either an anti-tank gun, an infantry gun, or an infantry squad. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1. Okay, so they're taking a anti-tank gun. So that's 5 points. They've got 1 point left. So it's a matter of rolling to see what they get. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, another entrenchment. So they've got 2 entrenchments and an anti-tank gun as support. I'll just note here, I don't have a PAC 36 German anti-tank gun in 20mm. So what we're going to use is a immobile German half-track sporting the appropriate anti-tank gun. So it's scenario 3 from the Capturing Caesar's Camp Pint-Size campaign that we're playing today. A bit of a table brief. To the north of the table, there's a road lined by a dense hedge until the dense hedge meets a sunken lane that's going from north to south, and then beyond that sunken lane, there is a lesser hedge with a couple of trees paralleling the road. The lane itself is a sunken lane, as I stated. It provides hard cover for troops in it, and any troops that are moving in that sunken lane tactically are impervious to direct fire. There's 2 large areas of standing crops, those wheat-looking fields. They are light cover for stationary troops, no cover for mobile troops. And then on the German side of the table, there is a dense hedge line running from north to the southeast, and then it meets a large wooded area. The scenario objective for the Brits is they have to exit, because it's a blitzkrieg scenario, they have to exit 2 teams off the German side of the table before the Germans can accumulate 2 complete chain of command die, and the British troops already have 1 chain of command die up their sleeve from a success in scenario 1. A chain of command die can be used by the Brits to reduce a German chain of command die from 6 to 3 at any point, and furthermore, the Brits could also win by reducing German force morale to 0. That's the table brief. That's the scenario. Now let's get it on. So the patrol phase has been concluded, and the Brits have got a jump-off point in the sunken lane, another one here in the sunken lane, and the last one is over here behind this very dense hedge. For the Germans, they have a jump-off point here, and then 2 in the woods, one here and another one there. So the scene is set, and we'll go from here. Okay, so the Germans have the highest force morale, so they go first, and let's see what they score. All right, 3, 3, 3, ooh, and 2 6s. So they've got a double phase. They could set themselves up really well here. But they're trying to keep their powder dry. So they're going to pass all of them, and they'll roll again. That's cocked. Okay, so a 3, a 3, a 3, 1. They have picked up a chain of command point, so that's what they're angling for. They want to build up those chain of command points. So they'll take that, and they'll disregard the rest. So now it's the Brits. Now they already have a chain of command dice accumulated, so they've got that up their sleeve. That's because of their success in scenario 1. Okay, let's see what they get this time. Okay, they've got a 4, 3, 2, 2, 3. All right, they can do something with that. Okay, so we have a look at where what the Brits have done. On the 2, they brought in a section. On a 2, they brought in another section. On a 3, they brought in a section. The junior leader then put his entire section on Overwatch. On the 4, they brought in a senior leader. He's put, using 3 command initiatives, the rifle team, the Bren team, and the rifle team on Overwatch. And on the final 3, we see the Bren carriers come on 6 inches. That's an indicator that I have an adjutant. He's standing on the road, being all adjutant-like. All right. So one of the obvious advantages with 20mm straight from the get-go is you can see you can get the whole section deployed without people being in double ranks and bunching up and stuff like that. So there's no need for you to fudge, we're fighting 2 ranks. We can fire 2 ranks deep, but you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. So there's the British sections. 3 of the sections are down and ready to go. on Overwatch, scanning forward to see if anything pops up over yonder. Okay, so now we're going to roll for the Germans again. Okay, another chain of command die. 2, 2, a 6, and a 1. Again, they're not going to use any of that. They're just going to take the chain of command die, and then we will straight away go to the Brits now. So the Germans now have 2 chain of command points, and the Brits, a double phase. Good news. 1, 1, 3. All right, that's a pretty good roll. Okay, so on the double 1, I brought in 2 of the 3 2-inch mortars, and they're going to fire. They're going to lay some smoke. And on the 3, we're going to get the Bren carrier to go absolutely clappers down the road here. All right. So the carrier went flying down the road, 16 inches. The mortars fired 2 smoke rounds. One was on target, the other one was 6 inches left. And now, because it's a double phase, we're going to go again. 2, 1. Okay, so that's a 2, 2, 1. All right. Okay, so with the double 2, I'm going to create a 4, and the platoon sergeant is going to get both of these mortars to fire again. And then he is going to put the Bren team on Overwatch as well. And then with the 1, I'm going to bring on the 3rd mortar. I'll deploy it here, and it will fire as well. So the mortars, all 3 mortars from this area here have fired. 2 under the direction of the platoon sergeant, 1 on deployment. They've lobbed their rounds down. They were all on target, so they've created a nice little smoke screen there. And now it is the German roll. They have 4, 4, 3, 1, and another chain of command point. So they're now up to 3 chain of command points. Okay, so again, all the Germans are taking is the 5, the chain of command point. Now the Brits will roll their die. Okay, so 4, 5, 3, 2, 2. Okay, that's useful. So with the 2 2s, I created a 4. So the platoon sergeant ordered the section that was here to double forward. They went flying forward to this point here, and they picked up 1 point of shock on each team. Then with a 4, I brought the platoon commander in on this jump off point here, my bad, and he's ordered all 3 mortars to fire, and they've placed a smoke screen along there. And then finally on the 3, the carrier went flat out down the road again and is now in this position here. So now it is the German phase again. See what they score. Well, they're getting plenty of chain of command points. A 3, a 2, and a 4. So that takes them up to 5 on their chain of command dice. And like I said, once they get 12, it's game over. So they'll be happy with that. 2, 3, 4. So on the 4, the Germans have deployed one of their squads, and they're in entrenchments. So they're the 2 entrenchments, and they've deployed a squad in behind that hedge. So it's out of line of sight, but they're in entrenchments and they're in a pretty good position. So if the carrier tries to come through, he's going to catch hell. Okay, the British roll. Okay, 6, 5, 1, 1, 3. Okay, so I'm going to create a 4 out of the 3 and the 1. Give that to the platoon sergeant. That leaves me a 1, which I'll use for that mortar there. He's going to tell these 2 mortars to fire with 2 command initiatives, then tell this section, which is within command radius, 9 inches, of him to that section, and then he's going to tell that section to double down the sunken lane. So all 3 mortars will fire, and then the other squad will move straight down the sunken lane. So these guys moved the whole 6 inches down the sunken trench, and the mortars, 2 rounds were bang on target, 1 went 6 inches to the right. So that's where we're at with that. Okay, a 6, a 2, and a 2, 1, 4. Germans will pass on that. The Brits, 6, 4, 4, 3, 1. So with 1-4, the platoon commander ordered the mortars to fire 3 rounds of smoke, and they've gone downrange and landed here. The other 4, the platoon sergeant, doubled forward, and then he removed the 2 points of shock from these guys. The 3, the carrier is hooked right and is now moving behind the smoke screen. And so now it is the German phase. A double phase, 2 4s and a 1. Well, that's really no use to them at this stage. I'll drop a die and roll again. And they've got a 5, which is handy. So that will take them up to a full chain of command dice now. So they're halfway there to that goal of getting their reinforcements arriving and stopping this British advance. So with that in mind, it's now the British turn again. 2 5s, 4, 3, and a 6. The 2 5s are kind of handy because if they can create an additional chain of command dice. Well, that's handy because by burning 1 chain of command dice, the Brits can take 3 chain of command points off the Germans. So that's a 4 and a 3. I think it's time for the Brits to get a real push on now. Okay, so with the 4, the platoon sergeant took control of one of the sections. He's pushed them straight out of the sunken lane, and they've rushed forward. They picked up 2 points of shock, but for his 2nd and 3rd command initiative, he's removed those. So he's moved forward with the platoon and removed the point of shock. With the section, removed the point of shock. And the 3, the carrier, has gone hell for leather, basically straight across here, and is now in that position there. So now it's over to the Germans. Looks like the Brits have thrown Jerry a bit of a dummy, and they're now pushing on the British right flank, German left. Okay, they've got a 6 and a 5, a 3. Oh, there's a 4 there. 6 5 4 3. 6 5 4 3 1. All right, Jerry's going to have to deploy now, or seriously think about getting some of their troops deployed in this woods here. So here's the conundrum for the Germans. They've got 2 jump-off points here. They've already deployed here in hard cover, so that's their entrenchments used. They've got a jump-off point and a jump-off point here, and they have got this carrier hooting along. They could deploy their anti-tank gun now on the 3 or the 1. The 3 would probably be best. Deploy it in here and go for a shot on the carrier. If they do that though, they'll be pretty much exposing where their anti-tank gun is. So it's a tough call. He'll be classed as moving fast. He's also, I'm pretty sure, classed as small, and he'll also be classed as partially obscured because he's in this wheat field as he's moving along. But he could, like I said, he could get a clean shot through here. Yeah, but that does present him, that will expose the gun, and then the Brits will be able to lay smoke to screen it. or blinded, I should say. So, let's just put it down to chance, 50-50, high, 4, 5, or 6, and he'll deploy. Okay, 5. So that means that the anti-tank gun's going to deploy. Okay, so for the anti-tank gun to hit the carrier, it's a total of 8. It's partially obscured, it's moved flat out, it's small and or low profile. So I don't know if they're cumulative. But yeah, and then with the commander of the gun using his initiatives as a -1. So anyway, it's an 8. Or 10, so that's a hit. Good shooting, Fritz. So the carrier rolled a 4 on a net 2 because there was 2 penetrations. And a 4 on a net 2 is carrier immobilized, crew disembark with 2 shock. So the carrier is immobilized and the crew's going to have to disembark with 2 shock. Okay, so now it's the Brits, because only these are the Germans with a 1 and they're going to deploy a team, so... 2 5s, 4, 2, and a 6. Those 2 5s gives the Brits their second full chain of command dice. That's really quite handy. With a 4, the platoon sergeant, the platoon commander got the mortars to fire 3 more rounds. So 1 basically in front of the anti-tank gun, and then 2 rounds. 1 there. The other one, that one there was actually off target. And that one was on target. So, and that is the Brits phase taken care of. So now we're back to the Germans again. There's a hell of a lot of smoke. Okay, the Germans end the turn. They have a 3 and a 1. So all the smoke's going to come off at the end of this turn, but they have a 3 and a 1, and they have another phase. So they could deploy a squad, and then all that smoke comes off, and they could just lay down some love. So they'll do that. So they're going to deploy a squad off this jump off point here. So now the turn, they've deployed, the turn is ended, so all the smoke comes off. The Germans have, they obviously could not fire when they deployed because there was nothing for them to shoot at. So they're deployed, the turn ends, the smoke comes off. Now the Germans drop a die and roll again. Let's see what they get. Okay, they've got a 2 and a 1, a 4 and a 5. So this squad has come in on the 2 and the 1, created a 3. So they're going to deploy and then fire. And then the 4 is brought in the Unteroffizier, and he's going to order this squad to fire as well. So it's going to be 2 squads, and they're all going to fire onto this lead squad here. That is going to be a lot of dice, I think. Okay, so all that firing resulted in 10 hits. Concentrating on this team here, but had to be shared because everything is within 4 of that team. So that's resulted in 2 dead, 1 shock. We now check to see if it's a leader. So 1 or a 2, and it is. 5, no leader hit. So there's a dead guy there, a dead guy there, and a point of shock on these guys. So the Brits got off fairly light, actually. I think it's safe to say. For all that shooting and electrocuting. So now it's the Brits roll. Oh, a double phase, a 4, a 3, and a 2. That's a pretty sweet roll for the Brits. They can do a lot with that, particularly when they've got 2 chain of command dice up their sleeve as well. Okay, so for the 4, the platoon sergeant moved up, removed 1 point of shock, and then told these guys to fire. For the 2, the section commander here brought his section up at a normal move into this area here. And for the 3, the junior leader here removed 1 point of shock and then told the Bren gun to open fire. For all the shooting from these guys, the 18 dice, they scored all of 4 hits. so 4 hits from 18, and that resulted in just 1 point of shock on the German rifle team in here. Now the Brits will drop a die, and they'll roll 4 because they've got a second phase. So they've got a 5, a 3, a 1, and a 2. Right, so with that, this section removed the point of shock and then opened fire. This section opened fire, and this is just a team, so he couldn't remove any shock, so he just fired the brand. So there were 6 there, 12 from here, and 11 from here. So all those dice scored resulted in 1 dead German machine gunner, 1 dead German rifleman, and a point of shock on these guys back here. And now it's the German phase. So at this point, the Brits have got 2 full chain of command dice, and they're working on a 3rd. The Germans have 1. It's now their roll, and they score a chain of command point, 6, 2 4s, and a 2. Right. So using the 2, this squad here decided there was not much point in staying in this hard cover, so they're trying to get up to the hedge to get into the fight. They went all of 4 inches. Over yonder, using the 4, the Unteroffizier removed 1 point of shock from this rifle team over here, ordered this squad to fire and that squad to fire. They all fired initially on the dismounted Bren team, Bren carrier. The first 3 hits resulted in nothing. The second 2 hits, however, resulted in 1 kill. Rolled to see if it was a leader, and it was, and he sustained a light wound. Rolled on the bad thing happens table, and a -1. So the Brits are now down to 7 for their force morale, and the Germans are still on 11. So now, with that done, it is now over to the Brits. And we're rolling for the Brits now. 6, 5, 5, 4, 2. Okay, so cashing in a chain of command point, we're going to bring this jump off point up to here, and that way they will be able to deploy 6 inches from there. So the Brit squad's going to deploy into that area there. So using a chain of command point, redeploying the jump off point into cover and behind the advanced line of their own troops, and then deploying 6 inches out to there. So that'll be the 2. So the 2 sees these guys deploy, and they'll fire on the Germans. And the 4 will see the sergeant here remove 1 point of shock, and then get both sections to open fire. Okay, so all the fire from the 3 British sections resulted in 1 kill and 7 shock. Then we rolled to see who was hit, the junior leader or the senior, well, if any of the leaders were hit, and we rolled a 1, so a leader was hit. And then we rolled to see if it was the senior or the junior. It was the senior leader, and then we rolled to see the consequences, and he's been killed. And they've rolled a 4 on the bad things happens table, so I'll have to have a look at that. But that's bad news for the Germans, because that section is also pinned, and the senior leader's been killed. So the German roll is 2 3s, a 2, a senior leader, and a 6. Well, the senior leader's no good to them, the 6 is no good. So they've got a 3 3 and a 2. Okay, so this section used the 2, and they've moved up. They moved on 1 dice. They got to the hedge and fired at half effect, and they caused 1 casualty here. So they've killed a guy on the Bren gun, and they also managed to kill one of the riflemen as well. So they caused 2 casualties here. No shock. Then over here, the squad leader removed 2 points of shock from the machine gun team. And then here, the squad opened fire, and they got caused 2 shock and one kill on the British section at the far end of the line there. Okay, so now it's the Brits' turn. Okay, another 2 5s. 4, 3, and a 3. That's a pretty good roll. Okay, so this section in depth has provided covering fire using their 3 on the Germans behind the hedge. So they're now under covering fire. The other 3 was this section here, and it opened fire together with the sergeant using a 4 to get both of these sections open fire on this German squad here that's pinned. Now, even though they're pinned, they still suffered 3 kills, but no leader, and a couple of more points of shock. So they're 1 off breaking now because they have 8 points of shock on 5 men. So now it's the German phase. A 6, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. So with the 3 here, the squad leader removed 2 points of shock. So it's taken them down to 6 points of shock. And then the 2 and the 1, we created a 3. And the squad leader opened fire here on the British here. And they inflicted 1 casualty, killed 1 guy, but that's all. And it wasn't the junior leader, so that was fortunate. Now it's the Brits' turn again. Five, which gives them their 3rd chain of command dice now. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Well, the 4 will go with the sergeant again. He's doing some sterling work. The 3 for this squad here, and the 3 will create a 3 here, so they can maintain the covering fire. Okay, let's do some shooting. Okay, so with the 4, both of these sections open fire. With the 2, this section opened fire. With the 3 here, they maintained the covering fire. The net result is there were 2 kills over here. One of them was on the junior leader, so he's been wounded. But they rolled really low, so the squad is not really concerned. So no dent to the force morale, but they're down to 4 men now with 6 points of shock on them. Okay, and so now it's the German phase again. Okay, so they've got 2 4s, which are no good to them at all. 2 3s, which is fine, and a chain of command point, which is that's kind of important for them. Okay, so the first 3 was used by the wounded Gefreiter in here. He's removed 1 point of shock, and that's all he could do. The other 3 was this German squad in here, and they've gone for some low-hanging fruit. So they've opened fire on the dismounted Bren carrier team. They killed the junior leader. They killed another man as well, leaving 1 man. They also inflicted a point of shock, so that will cause the team to break. So there's 2 bad things here for the Brits. Junior leader killed and a team breaking. The Brits are going to avoid the junior leader killed roll. They'll skip that one and they'll just roll for the team breaking. 1, I think that'll have no effect. So as it now stands, the Brits, their force morale is at 7. The Germans' force morale is at 9. The Germans have 1 full chain of command dice and a point, and the Allies, the Brits, have 1 full chain of command dice. They use 1 to move a jump off point. They've used 1 to avoid a force morale check. So they could burn that chain of command dice and take 3 points off the Jerrys here, and then just hope to break them. But it is now the Brits' turn, so they're going to roll to see what they get. Okay, they've got a 5, 1, 2, 3, 3. So with the 4, the platoon commander got his mortars to lay down some smoke. And with the 2 and the 3, these guys here opened fire on the Germans in the woods. The smoke was partially effective. It's basically taken the German machine gun and one of the riflemen out of the equation for shooting. The other 2 rounds were off target. And over here, all the fire that came from the 2 British sections onto these Germans in the woods here, all blurry and the like, not a single hit, nothing, zilch, out of about 20 rounds of fire. Okay, so now it's the German phase. A 4, which is no good to them whatsoever. A 3, a 3, a 1, and a 1. Okay, so that, I can do something with that. Okay, so the German squadron here opened fire, and they wounded the junior leader over here, and they've caused 2 points of shock and killed just caused 2 points of shock. So that was their fire. We rolled for the junior leader, and no one was concerned. With the 1, the anti-tank gun fired, scored 3 hits, which resulted in 1 rifleman being killed. So they're now down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 men, a wounded man with 4 points of shock. So they're in the hurt locker a bit. Over here, the junior leader removed another point of shock, and over here the rifle team fired and actually killed a British rifleman, but didn't hit that leader. So now it's the Brits phase. They've got a 6, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. All right, so that's going to be essentially 2 4s. Okay, so for the senior leader, he ordered 1 round of smoke in front of the anti-tank gun, and that landed bang on target. And then 2 rounds of HE onto the Germans behind the hedge up here. They got 3 hits, but resulted in absolutely nothing, not even a point of shock. So that anti-tank gun's blinded. And then for all the firing from these 2 sections here, and the covering fire was laid down onto them, it resulted in 1 point of shock on the Germans that are already pinned. So pretty abysmal shooting all round from the Brits. It's now the Germans' phase. But they did, like I said, they did put some covering fire from here down onto this German section here. So hopefully that will lessen the hurt. Oh, end of turn and a 2 and a 1. Okay, so the Germans in the woods, the very, very sneaky Germans here, they fired on the guys that were putting covering fire on them, and they scored 1 point of shock. The covering fire did save them a bit. The Germans would have got 4 hits on them, but as it turned out, they only got 2 thanks to the covering fire that they were under. So that did soften the blow a bit, but the phase, the turn has ended. So all the smoke is now off. The Germans drop a die and roll again. And a 6 and a 4, that's no good to them. A 2 and a 2. The good news is for the Brits that the anti-tank gun can't fire because it needs a 3 or a 1. So 2 sections can fire, however. So that one there and this one here. So we'll do some firing and then we'll get back to you. Well, the Germans fired from this section here and this section here. They scored absolutely no hits whatsoever here. Well, they actually scored 3 hits, but it didn't equate to anything. And then over here, they scored just 1 point of shock. So now the Germans are firing terribly. But that sees the end of the German phase. So now it's the Brits. Yeah, and of course it was the end of the turn. The corporal rolled to get up, and he's back on his feet, even though he's somewhat, he's got a wound. And now it's the Brit phase. 1, 1, 1, 3, 3. Okay. So with the, I created a 4 with one of the 3s. So he's ordered this section to throw a smoke grenade and this section to throw a smoke grenade, which they did. And then he ordered this section to fire. Over here, this section fired. And basically all they succeeded in doing is inflicting some shock on the Germans back here. They're desperately trying to break them, but they're not having much joy. Then the mortars in depth fired 2 rounds. One was bang on target, which covered that German machine gun. The other one tried to blind the German anti-tank gun, but was unsuccessful, and it went to the left. So now it is the German phase again. Double phase, a chain of command point, a 1 and a 4, which is no good, but it's getting them closer to that magic 12. The 1, well, that's a no-brainer. The anti-tank gun will fire, and so we'll do that right now. They've got 3 points, 3 HE. They're going to shoot at these guys here. 2 hits in light cover, well, actually no cover. 1 dead, 1 shock. Is it the leader? No, but it is a rifleman. These guys are just unshakable. But they have picked up a point of shock finally. But it is a double phase for the Germans, so they'll roll again. Oh, they're getting close. 3. A 2 and a 1. Right. Okay, so the Germans in here fired, and they, rather than firing on these guys through the smoke, they fired on these. They caused 1 casualty, which was a kill, but it wasn't a leader. Over here, the anti-tank gun fired again and killed 1 man and caused a point of shock. So these guys have got 2 points of shock, and there's only 4 of them left. Geez, the Brits are really just getting chewed up. They're taking massive casualties, but they're hanging in there. Okay, they've got 2 5s, 2 2, and a 6. Okay, so with the 2 2s, this section and what's left of this section all fired on the German broken squad, pin squad, and have finally broke them. Killed 2 guys. A rifleman and a machine gunner, leaving 1 machine gunner and 1 rifleman left, plus the wounded junior leader. They break and they rout it off the table. So the Germans have to roll for a German junior leader routing and for a German squad broken. So, well, that's not a bad roll. So all up, they only cost the Germans, for a junior leader routing and a squad breaking, only dropped them 2. So they're both down to, the situation is incredibly similar. The Allies, the Brits are on 9 chain of command points. Jerry's on 9 chain of command points. German morale's at 7. Brit morale's at 7. And that ends the British turn. So now it is Jerry's turn. A 3 and a 2. All right, so that just leaves this squad over here in the woods on the 3, this squad over here on the 2, and without a 1, the anti-tank gun, or the anti-tank gun could fire with the 3, so that's probably better. And the 2 with this squad over here, because 4 riflemen versus 3 HE is obviously a better option for the Germans in regards to that. Okay, so the anti-tank gun fired and scored 3 3s, so not a single hit on these chaps. This squad here fired. They decided that they'd risk it and try to break this section here. But because they were firing through smoke, they could only hit on 6. So they rolled about 5 5s and 1 6. So that smoke really saved their butts. But they did score a point of shock, which has pinned this section now. Because there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, actually, they're not pinned. There's 6 men, and they've got 6 points. Oh, no, 7 points of shock. They are pinned, sorry. So they're now pinned. But that's the German phase completed. All they succeeded doing was pinning that section. Now it's the Brit phase. Okay, that's a handy roll. So with the 4, 3 points of shock were removed from here by the sergeant. With the 2, this section, and the 2 with that section, the 3 with that section, even though not all of them can shoot. A couple of the riflemen are out of the shooting because they're masked by their mates in front. And a round of HE from one of the mortars back here resulted in 2 dead and 3 shock on the rifle team, because the only guys that can be seen through this gap in the smoke is the rifleman. So 2 dead, 3 shock, junior leaders fine. And so now it is the German phase again. Oh, another double phase and another 2 3s. The Germans are getting lots of double phases, which are handy for them. So the anti-tank gun fired on these guys, killed 1 guy, but did nothing else. And these guys fired over here, and they caused some shock. And they've almost pinned these guys again. But they do have another phase. So they drop a dice. Oh, 2 chain of command points. And 2 4s, which are no good to them at all. But they're only 1 off winning the game. Now, it's the Brits' turn. And they're obviously going to take 3 chain of command points off them. Yeah, 4, 4, 4, 3, 2. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to burn a chain of command point and reduce this by 3. 4, 4, and a 4, 2, and a 3. Okay, so what we did here is he removed 2 points of shock, told this section to fire. Removed a point of shock, told this section to fire. And then this section fired. And they can only hit the rifle team. They've killed 2 riflemen. They've inflicted some shock, and they wounded the junior leader. Then the senior leader, the lieutenant, ordered all 3 mortars to fire, 3 rounds of HE into here, and they've killed 2 Germans and wounded the junior leader. So 2 wounded junior leaders, and the German morale has dropped to 5 from 7. So now it is the Germans' phase. They've still got 5 dice, but only just. They do have, they've gone back up to another chain of command point. So they're 3 away. 6, a 3, a 3, and a 3. They've only got 2, oh, no, they've got the anti-tank gun, a wounded squad leader, and a wounded squad leader over there. So everyone can fire, even though it would be quite ineffective firing. But they can fire from here with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 dice. Over here with very little, actually, maybe 1. And the 3 rounds of HE from this anti-tank gun. The anti-tank gun and the handful of riflemen here fired over here. They killed 1 man, the rifleman. So that's a team wiped out. We rolled for that, and it had no effect on the British force morale for a team wiped out. But there's just 1 Bren gunner and the corporal there with a point of shock on them. These guys then fired, the Germans in here. They fired down here at these guys, and they caused 1 point of shock. That's that. Now it's the Brit phase. This could be a deciding phase. 5, 2, 2, 3, 1. That's 2 4s essentially. Okay, so he's removed 2 points of shock from these guys. Got these guys to open fire over here, and they've caused 3 points of shock, and then the mortars in depth, they put one smoke round here and blinded the anti-tank gun, and 2 rounds of HE, their last two rounds of HE, 4 dice worth, and they killed another German behind the hedge. So these juries are now, I think, pinned. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 6 men. Even though the leader's knocked out, he still counts. But they're one off being pinned. This is blinded. This German section here is okay. So now it's the German phase. Oh, okay. They're only one off. 2 4s are no good to them. A 3 is this section in depth. They'll fire. They have a grand total of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 dice. So they'll hurl 13 dice at these guys here. So they fired their 13 dice and scored 1 more point of shock on these guys. Man, this is really going down to the wire now. If the Brits don't win in this phase, I don't think they will. 3 4s. They only need 2 of them. 1 and a 2. What can they do? Okay, so the senior leader here removed 2 points of shock, told these guys to fire across at those Germans over there again. This team fired with their 4 dice at them. This section also fired at the rifle team there, and then the 3 rounds of smoke were placed here, and they were all on target. So the Germans had a team wiped out now because all the riflemen are dead over there, and they've dropped to their morales down to 4. So they're going to lose a dice, but if they can just roll a 5, they'll win it, and they have. There's a 5. And so the Germans have held on grimly, but only just. So that gives them their 2 chain of command dice. And they've stemmed the blitzkrieg of the Brits. But geez, what a bloodbath. Okay, so that's the blitzkrieg scenario played in 20 mil. I think what we saw there is what happens when you lose sight of the mission objective. If the Brits had probably been a little more aggressive, they might have been able to force their way through the German defensive position. That said, for sheer firepower alone, the Brits had so many chances where they could have broken the Germans. So ultimately, I think because obviously I was playing as the Brits against the Germans, and I think it was just came down to the fact that the Brits, their shooting was just abysmal. And the Germans were getting double phases at just the right time. And when they were suffering bad things, potential blows to their force morale, the reality was they kept rolling so low, and their force morale just wouldn't tumble. So these Germans were really, really resilient. And again, it highlights the narrative nature of chain of command. These dogged German 12th SS young men just would not break, despite the fire being brought down upon them. And the Brits, their firing was just wild. Must have been a green battalion that was going forward. A couple of stupid things as well, like the Bren carrier. It could have easily have pulled up in the smoke screen. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm going to drive this carrier up to the edge of the smoke screen. It wasn't necessary for me to go the full move and leave myself hanging out there. The German anti-tank gun, though, it needed a 9 to hit, and it rolled a 10. Sorry, it needed a 9 to roll, and it rolled a 10. So yeah, good shooting from those anti-tank gunners to immobilise the Bren carrier. But anyway, that is today's game. That's Chain of Command. That's Chain of Command solo, and that's Chain of Command in 20mm. And the thing about 20mm, I think, is it just, the table just seems a little bit more open. I'm going to refight this scenario as part of the Capturing Caesar's Cam pint size campaign. Obviously, that the forces involved will be slightly different. There will be, based on the 1940s British platoon, and the Germans will be a second wave platoon. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out, and that will be in 28mm. So, yep, that's all for now. As Ginger would say, like, share and subscribe. That's all for now. Uruguay.